Hey everybody, it's Tim. It's great to be with you again today on our journey through the Bible. This year, one day at a time, one verse at a time, and the passage of Scripture that we're sharing together today is Genesis 10, 11, and 12. Chapter 10 sometimes is referred to as the Table of the Nations. These are the nations that resulted from Noah and his family. Then, chapter 11, we have the story of the Tower of Babel and the judgment that fell on the human race because of that. But then we get to chapter 12, which is a very important chapter. In fact, the most important verses in the Bible are found in this chapter. I'll tell you why in a minute. But it also answers some questions that people may have about life today. If you know history, you know that in the 1920s, in Europe and in Germany especially, and there were other places as well, but there was a great deal of hatred and animosity toward the Jews that led throughout the 1920s to the rise of the Nazi Party and the camps and the extermination centers in the 30s and 40s that developed from that. Just the hatred of the Jews. Well, we're not in the 1920s. It's 100 years later in the 2020s. But you can see the same hatred toward Jews that's on the rise today. And it's in Europe and in Asia and in the United States. You see demonstrations in the streets where people are just, they're angry. They're calling for the death of the Jews, gas the Jews. People are chanting, and you may wonder why do people hate the Jews of all people more than any other group? This chapter, the verses that I want to share with you today, answers that question. It's not just today that this has been true. It's not just in the 1920s, but throughout history, you see people who have tried to destroy the Jews, whether it was Pharaoh in Egypt or Caesar in the days of Rome or uh, the Ottomans. Throughout history. That has been the case, and it's because of what we see here in these verses. And these verses are also important because, in terms of theology today, it's the foundation for prophecy that we find throughout the Bible that grows out of this. And this is the foundation also of premillennial theology. It doesn't begin in Revelation chapter 20. It starts in Genesis chapter 12 with the promises that God made to a man by the name of Abraham. Abram at this time. Let me read those, and I just share with you a few thoughts about those today, all right? In Genesis chapter 12, verse 2, we have the starts of the covenant God made with Abraham. The unilateral covenant. It was not an agreement between God and Abraham where they came together and met in the middle, but this is just God appearing to one man and said, "This is what I'm going to do for you." Didn't require anything of Abraham. It says in verse 2, Genesis chapter 12, "I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and I will make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed." Boy, there is a lot here in this covenant. The fact that God said, "I'm going to make your name great." Abram at that time was not great, maybe not well known, but he would be well known. And his descendants, the Jewish people, would be a great nation, even though at this time Abraham did not have any children. God said, "It's going to happen. I'm going to bless the one who blesses you and curse the one who curses you." That has been a sticking point for a lot of people. Those who have blessed the Jewish people are rewarded by God, and his enemies throughout history have always suffered when they rise up against the Jewish people. And most importantly, I think, is the last part of that covenant. And all the nations of the earth will be blessed. That blessing he's talking about here is not just that I'm going to make everybody rich because of you. I'm not going to make everybody's life comfortable because of you, but he's talking about people who would be saved in all the nations of the earth because of this man, Abraham, and because of his descendants, the Jews. Jesus said salvation is of the Jews. Still true today. We're told in Romans chapter 11, all Israel will be saved. And when we get to the book of Revelation, we see how God is going to make all of that happen someday yet in the future. And so when we understand that, I want you to realize that when we look at people who hate the Jews um, around the world, regardless of what political party they're involved in, it's a spiritual battle. Our enemy, Satan, knows the promises that were made throughout Scripture to this unique group of people. And if he can destroy them somehow, he can make God a liar, and God will no longer be God. But I think because of that, Satan hates the Jews, and he influences people around the world to do the same and to hate the Jews. Well, keep that in mind, my friends, and I think this is a message that evangelicals in our country need to take to heart. You know, the church in Germany had a chance to rise up and say, no, this is not right. When you're demonstrating in the streets against the Jews and you want to blame the Jews for all the problems that people are having and you want to put the Jews in camps, the church, in too many cases, was silent because of that and let it happen and until it was too late and they couldn't do anything. Don't let that happen in our country, my friends. If you're an evangelical, don't be silent. Rise up and let people know this is not right. To rise up against the Jews and to chant, gas the Jews and kill the Jews. It's not right. When it's time to vote, my friends, don't you dare sit at home and think that your vote doesn't count. You need to make it count when the time comes. Well, think about that, my friends, as you think about our passage today, because it's so important. Now, tomorrow, our scripture reading is going to be also three chapters, chapters 13, 14, and 15 in the book of Genesis. So I'll be reading that, and I'll be back with you again, and we'll think about that some more. See you again. I'm looking forward to that.